Hello, everyone, and welcome to Stoked, the ultimate Star Trek online podcast. My name is Chris.
My name is Jeremy.
Well, hello there, J-Man.
Well, hello there, Chris.
You know what we have, J-Man?
What do we have?
We have a supersized edition of the show today.
Yes.
Mega big.
What do you know? We take a week off, we go to PAX, and all hell breaks
We
loose.
did. PAX was good. In fact, if you want to see a lot of the exclusive gameplay footage we got, Firefall looked pretty interesting, I got to say. There's a couple things you can do. One, go to jupiterbroadcasting.com/PAX.
Yeah.
We've got exclusive footage there, all kinds of videos, things to check out.
A special little nugget for Guild Wars 2 fans in there, a whole panel that you can find nowhere else on the internet.
Ooh,
Yes.
and a bunch of Firefall footage, as well as some cosplay outfit videos, and just also come on other stuff.
Yeah.
Anyways, jupiterbroadcasting.com/PAX is where you can find that, or you can go watch this last week's episode of Jupiter Night. We wrapped that up. We've got a huge episode, though. We're obviously spending some time on the free-to-play topic. Cryptic has officially announced that Star Trek Online will be going free-to-play, and we've collected all the details that are out there at this point, and we're going to cover them, as well as give you our thoughts on all of that. That's coming up in the show, as well as some awesome tweet leaks.
Yeah.
And also a few other surprises. But first, out of all of that, there's been some new ships that have hit Tribble, and they've got some fancy toys, and we thought the best way to get the lowdown, as well as the stuff with the toss phasers that I got all hot and bothered about.
You sure did.
We're going to get it from the source, so let's go right into rumor busting with Al. And of course, we've got these big headphones on because it's time for rumor busting with Al. Al, thanks for coming back for another show.
Pleasure to be here. Good to see you.
Now, we've got a couple of quick items this week because we'll cover the big news later on in the news segment. But up first, let's cover the two things that you can comment on this week. First off was one that made me cry to myself to sleep earlier in the week.
This hit you hard.
I was rocked. Well, I'll tell you why I got rocked. I got rocked because I jumped into the Borg encounters for the first time, and my phasers were...
We're talking about the original series blue phasers.
Which I love.
They came as equipped on the TOS Connie. It was a pre-order bonus for guys at GameStop, right?
Yeah, and I might have got a little exploity and equipped and unequipped the ship a few times.
A lot of people did. That's why this became a big issue.
I made a beamboat out of it.
Yeah.
I made a beamboat, so I loved it. But so there was some adjustments made, Al, and instead of me explaining it, why don't you mention what happened this week? So what's the end result now with the toss phasers? Where do we end up at?
Well, the end results are that right now, if you have the Connie, the TOS Connie, which you have either as a pre-order or you can microtrans, that you get a pair of fore and aft blue TOS phasers, and if you take the weapons off and then you dismiss the ship and then you reclaim the ship, you'll get another pair of phasers, and you can keep doing that. That was never the intent. That just kind of happened. So that's neither here nor there. So you can do that, and you can have as many as you want. Those phasers are technically green quality. By green quality, I mean that they have one enhancement on them. They have a critical chance to hit bonus. They're marked as blue because they're levelless, so they level with you. That's the other enhancement that comes with it.
Truthfully, that's one of the primary reasons that people kept getting them over and over, because then they could ignore their weapons for a couple ranks if they wanted to.
So that's where that is now. You can still do that. Currently, you can still do that, and that'll stay like that. And then there are a similar set of blue TOS phasers in the Davidian series as a reward. And those now are true blue quality in that they have two enhancements. They have a damage enhancement, and they have the critical chance to hit bonus enhancement on it. Hey, their videos came in now. So So now those are true blue quality. They're marked, so they're level banded. They don't level with you.
But players can go and rerun that same mission from the Davidian series at each rank if they wanted to have the phaser.
That seems like a fair compromise, because then it isn't you're still earning them.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so you're still grinding them out.
So just to clarify, the problem came about because somebody fixed the original phasers on the back end and turned them into unique, because they were never intended to be multiple sets on a single character, right?
Well, basically,
that was the original fix that kind of caused the hubbub to erupt.
They always have been marked as unique. What unique means, but unique is a really expensive on the server for us. Whenever we make an item unique, because unique means that whenever you try to get another one, it checks all your bags and all your ships, all your bags and all your officers, all your bank bags, all your fleet bags, and make sure you don't have one hidden somewhere. And so every time someone logs in and tries to go with a unique item and tries to get another one, it's a big hit in the server. So they made a new they added some new code for unique, and this was not something particularly intended just for specifically for the TOS phasers. It's been trickling through its cryptic code that checks to see instead that you can only have one slotted on any given puppet, right? Any given ship.
Okay.
And so the way unique would work is that if if in the past when there were conflicts, it would say that if you had like two slotted, it wouldn't do anything, but if you took one out and tried to put it back in, it says, no, you can't slot another one. And that's what we would have expected to happen. But instead, what was unexpected is that it deleted all your duplicates. Okay, so we didn't really expect that to happen.
And that's why there was
just
no pre-warning, because you didn't know.
And that was just a complete oversight. It was our bad. We didn't expect that to happen. But honestly, we really only wanted the TOS phasers to only be able to get one. That's how all the bonus items on microtransaction ships work.
That's why they were flagged as unique to begin with.
Yes, that's why they were flagged as unique to begin with.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah,
but players found this loophole, and we just kind of let it go because there really wasn't anything we could do about it at the time. But people got really attached to it, and I understand that. And so when it happened, people got upset on the boards. I saw Chris all over the boards for their a lot.
I was hot.
Yeah, and so I saw that people were getting, and so I proposed an original solution, which was okay. I can't even remember what the first solution was, which didn't go over well, which was just going to be. We'll keep the TOS. You'll only be able to get one, but you can go ahead and keep getting more from the Davidian series. And,
right.
And that seemed like a fair solution. Honestly, that would have been the best solution had we just launched like that.
Right.
But people were really, really attached. They said, "Oh, it's the only reason I bought my Connie is because I wanted to have all blue phasers for my Excelsior, and
the sound is awesome too for those TOS phasers.
So it's like, okay, you're used to it. It's really no harm. So what we'll do is I still want you to have to replay that Davidian series. I still want you to go back and play that to get those items. But if you have levelless ones, there's no really need to do that. So I just made those better. So that way everybody wins. You guys
and it makes it actually a better way to get something from in game. I mean, it makes it better. So that's always a win for players.
Are the rewards from the Davidian series unique, or can you get as many on your ship as you like?
No, they're not unique.
Okay. So that's also a valid workaround to encourage people to not.
We took all the uniques and max slot requirements off of all of those.
All right.
So that way, if you want to run all blue phasers, that's fine. They're not the best phasers in the game. Not the best weapons in the game by far, but they're pretty.
But they're among the prettiest.
Yes,
actually, before we move on to talking about ships, I wonder if I could pick your brain about something that's kind of an old issue. But the whole concept of blue phasers, one of the reasons that people find these so appealing is because they're not orange. And once upon a time, there was actually a code that you could type into the client to change the color of your weapon.
Yeah, back early.
Is this ever something that you guys might consider re-adding, or even something that you could add as a thing on the microtransaction on the C store, like a cosmetic change to your ship weaponry?
Well, that is technology from Champions, because Champions you can shift your powers, and so that was on there. There was we made a decision that we weren't going to let that happen in Star Trek for a couple reasons. One is we didn't want a lot of rainbow Technicolor stuff. Star Trek, we're trying to be a little more serious than Champions. Champions has a little more lighthearted.
It is. It is a little bit of a slap in the face to canon to see rainbow phasers.
Yeah, and I'm always a big fan of being able to identify what someone is doing. If somebody is shooting you with something, with something green, it's a plasma, and so
that's true.
So that you can identify what it is, so you know how to defend against it if you want to go up against, what kind of build you're going to want to do, and frankly, it's canon. It's just we want to respect the canon, and I'm sure if we wanted to do that, I vaguely, and I can't speak for sure, remember having this conversation with CBS, and they're saying, no, we don't want to see you have yellow.
I'd slip it in though for a mission or something.
Yeah, a new red-colored phaser.
Yeah, just for one mission. Here's your special weapon for this mission.
I mean, there's no reason that we couldn't have a special weapon that's just, I don't know. This is a anti-Nadion phaser, and it's whatever.
You heard it here first, guys.
Purple.
Watch your anti-Nadions coming to a game near you.
Anti-Nadion phaser, and that's fine. You see someone with purple lasers and stuff. Maybe the Andorians will get that. I don't know.
All right.
Yeah. So why don't we talk a little bit about some of the new ships that have hit the game, or at least are about to. They're on Tribble while we're shooting this. The Fed's got one. The Klingons got one. I've personally checked out the Fed one. Of course, I'm blanking on the name. Venture class.
Yeah. It's the exploration cruiser refit Venture class.
It's a really interesting ship design, which I know is not yours, but I'll just cover it very briefly. It looks like
it's a Thomas the Cat ship.
Yeah,
That's his
and it's
design.
a Thomas original.
Yeah.
It looks like it takes some cues from actually some of the old Perpetual designs as well as the Ambassador, which
As a matter of
everybody's been
fact,
wanting.
it is a little inspired by that really big swooping back.
Yeah,
from
the
start.
spine of the ship.
Yeah.
That's what brings it to
I
mind.
think it's
for me.
beautiful. I think they're one of my favorites now.
Yeah, I'm personally not a big fan of the Galaxy or any of its variants, but I do like this ship and the new material that came with it.
That's my favorite part.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a limitation on the material right now. The material only works if you have all Venture parts. If you want to swap the nacelles, because maybe you want the Galaxy nacelles, you'll lose that material choice. It's a technological hurdle. There, hopefully, should have that resolved. I'm not sure when. It may not be resolved by the time it's released, but it's just.
Well, that's basically because that material is only available on the Venture.
On the Venture class right now, yeah.
Right.
We're trying to make it available that once you've unlocked it, it's available to all the classes on there.
Now your area of expertise, Al, is actually the systems and the powers of everything.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about the antimatter spread. That came with this.
Okay.
First
Sure.
of all, what's the canon reference? This is from Best of Both Worlds, isn't
That's
it?
right. That is from
Totally.
Best of Both Worlds, and I'm anticipating a clip on the show right now. Watching me. Yeah, so that's when Captain Picard was Locutus, and Riker wanted to launch a rescue operation to get Locutus back. So he separates the saucer. Commander Shelby's on the saucer, and they shoot an antimatter spread, this pyrotechnics display, to confuse the Borgs or jam the Borg sensors so they could slip a shuttle in.
Dang, look at you go, Al. You got it down. Yeah.
You have no idea.
Oh, I think I'm getting one. Because that's it.
So that power was actually, we had made that power before we launched, and we just couldn't really pull it off right. Never made it. So I've got that one in the Picard maneuver, just kind of holding, just been waiting at the right time to try to get that working right.
But that's what the power does in game. First of all, it's a engineering console, right?
No, it's universal. You can use it on any ship. You can use it on all these anytime
Any ship. No, so unlike the Rhode Island
cruiser,
variant,
or
it can be.
To be clear, it is available on the cruiser and then technically the Dreadnought cruiser. The all good things.
The Galaxy X.
Yeah.
Sweet.
So it'll work on any of those cruisers. But it's universal, can fit on any slot.
Okay.
It is a PBAOE. There's no damage. It's not an attack. So it does a PBAOE confuse. It's about half weapons range, so it's 5,000 kilometers.
That's good to know.
And if everyone's not sure what confuse does, confuse against critters will make them basically, for everybody, all friends and foes are considered the same. So you can attack foes, you can attack friends, and you attack foes, and you can heal friends and heal foes. So AoEs will affect your allies and your enemies. So for critters, they'll randomly start switching and they'll sometimes shoot you, they'll sometimes shoot their allies. For players, all the HUD reticles become generic, and you can shoot or hurt the wrong target.
Now
So
that on its own isn't usually too powerful, but this also includes like a jam sensors type ability.
It's like a jam sensor, as we call it. It's a placate, so that will hide you from your foes, so you'll be hidden. But that placate is what we call fragile. That means if you attack somebody who is jammed, they will be able to detect you after a few shots.
Oh, okay.
So that part is not in this weekend. That will be in on Monday or Tuesday.
The fragility of the hull.
The fragility of the placate.
Right.
Okay.
So
And
in other words, to take it from another perspective, if you're hit with this power, suddenly the target that shot it off will disappear.
Yep.
And everybody around you becomes a viable target.
Yeah.
see.
Or a valuable ally.
Oh.
You could accidentally heal an enemy.
Oh, okay. That's good to know.
Yeah.
Because I would totally probably do that.
That's how confuse works in Cryptic Engine.
But there's also an additional component. This adds debuff to their perception, right?
That it adds a debuff to perception. That means they can't. So anybody who's too far away is they can't see. And there's one other piece that you probably haven't seen. If you're hit with it, you get the Mutara Nebula screen effect.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
cool.
that's slick.
So you get the little static on your screen, and we added
your
that to
mini-map
jam
goes-
sensors as well, and the mini map goes static. Okay.
Oh,
That's cool.
cool. So jam sensors. That's
Yeah.
cool because I pop that off on people.
Just to clarify real quick, that perception also affects stealth potentially, right? So if you coordinate this well, if you fire off your antimatter spread and then your whole team cloaks, like
If your home team mask energy signatures, for instance,
Yeah.
they wouldn't be able. They would have a really hard time seeing you.
or if you fire off this and then use your Nova
Oh yeah,
console.
Well, you
would make
you wouldn't be able to have both of those on the same ship.
right.
it's science
It's one
only.
science.
yeah.
Gotcha.
Good reason to have a team.
But your allies could make use of
Yeah.
it.
Your islands could do that, yeah. But for both of the ships, They're very early. I'm looking for a lot of feedback right now as far as tuning. Right now, that the antimatter spread, the effect lasts 8 seconds. There's now a current change that's not live, and that it has been reduced to 6 seconds, but it's affected by skills, so you can get up to 9.
Oh, okay.
So, and it uses starship operations, emitters, and astrometrics.
Does your auxiliary power level affect it at all? The
auxiliary
effectiveness
power
even
does
of the
not affect
debuff?
it. No.
Okay.
Cool.
I had one question in the chat room. They say that cubes tend to be more resistant to confuses and placates.
Borg are highly resistant to confuse. I don't remember if they're resistant to placate, but and so are in general bosses.
Okay.
But
this particular power won't feed off of anything special to make it go and affect cubes more. It's kind of, they're just more resistant.
Cubes are just generally resistant to confuse, and bosses are generally resistant to confuse. And bosses on the ground are resistant to knockback and that sort of thing.
Okay.
That's just kind of an MMO thing. You make your bosses not, can't be just,
controlled and locked down.
Control too much.
Right.
You don't want your bosses all of a sudden slaughtering the entire team because they got, the whole counter because they got confused by 3-second power or something.
So should we talk a little about this Klingon ship? Because its new ability reminds me a little bit of the chain lightning ability from the Borg.
The Borg Queen.
Yeah.
Not Queen.
Well, the Borg at the end of the STO.
Sure.
But this is a pretty hot ship. We got some shots for it before the show on the live.
I think
Vor'Kang. I think I got that right.
Yeah, the Vor'Kang. It's a beautiful ship. This is one of Adam's, Adam Williams, I forgot his handle. He's did a really good job on the ship. It's really beautiful. And so it was...
that's Captain Logan.
Yeah, Captain Logan. That's right. Yeah, because he dresses like Wolverine or something. So it's kind of a chain lightning. It's very much like that, like the Borg weapon in that it does more and more damage every time it jumps.
Yeah.
I actually got my hands on this one just before the show today. I did a quick little PvP match to check it out, and it didn't do a whole lot to the initial target.
Right.
But the one that got the fourth jump, or third or fourth jump, he said his shields were completely knocked out, and it did some damage to his hull. So if you get correct me if I'm wrong, but this is a great counter to a tactic that people complain about in PvP is the Fed ball.
I am very, very proud of you that you said that, because that's exactly what the design was for.
Yeah, I think this counter a lot of PvP players on the KDF side.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
We're making a lot of these behind the scenes, we call them +1 ships. Every ship that is in the game from tiers 1 through 5 is getting a variant. Okay, on Klingon and Fed side. Additionally, on the Klingon side, you're also getting Tier 3 and Tier 4 Gorn, Nausicaan, and Orion ships. Okay, so including a Tier 3 and Tier 4 carrier. So we're trying to...
Oh, mini carriers, how cute.
Yeah, little mini carriers. They're called flight deck cruisers.
I like that.
Flight deck cruisers. That's actually a military ship I looked up. Everyone is getting these special powers, and we're trying to do a lot of things that are counters for things that people are complaining about. Things like Gorn and Orion ships not having cloaking. How do we address that? Things like how do you counter cloak? How do you counter cloaks, and all these? How do you deal with all the fighters that carriers are dealing with? So as we keep releasing these, hopefully people will be as smart as you are there, Jeremy, and realize that this will counter this problem I've had with all the time. In this case, the Fed furball.
Well, that's great. Then you never end up in a case where you have an unbeatable tactic. You always have an option available.
I'm not going to say never, because we're going to release another unbeatable tactic.
Yeah, right.
And then we'll sell that one.
Yeah, there you go. Actually, it seems like there's been a few things that have hit the C-Store lately that are specifically enticing people to play Klingons. There's been the new costumes, where you get a Fed eye patch when you buy the Klingon costume.
Which is also, I just want to say that's really great, because there are probably tons of Fed players out there that just want the eye patch.
Yeah.
But they buy this pack, and now they have a new costume for a Klingon, so why not go check it out?
And now the higher end players are getting a new ship too, which is which looks like it's got a real nice perk to it.
Yeah.
And is this a universal console too? It's a tactical one, right? For the chain lightning.
It's universal slot. It can go into any slot, and it can be slot on any battle cruiser, carrier, or Orion cruiser.
Okay.
So not like a Bird of Prey won't have this.
Bird of Prey won't have it.
Right.
And you just brought up a point that I want to clarify. Both of these ships, if you notice, are captain ships. They're Tier 4 ships.
Right.
When you purchase these microtransaction ships, the costume will unlock for the ship you just bought, as well as its Tier 4 counterparts, in other words, the original Exploration Cruiser,
Okay.
and will also unlock for the Tier 5 retrofit variant.
Okay,
so if you
cool.
have the Tier 5 Galaxy with saucer separation, you can put the Venture costume on there.
Nice.
You have
Does
the-
it work at all with
that's-
the Galaxy X, or is that
No,
a
it does
special
not.
case?
It's a completely different skeleton.
Okay.
That's
So
awesome.
yeah, so that one will not work with, because it's got a whole bunch of other parts. It's just complete.
So I
it
can
probably
use-
could be
I-
retrofit that way, but that was just too much work. We
So I
couldn't
can
get
use the
that.
costume on the Galaxy retrofit with saucer sep, and I can use the console on the Galaxy X.
Right.
That's
So,
sweet.
and the same thing happens on the Vorcha. You can put that in the Tier 5 Vorcha retrofit, which is not even a microtrans ship. You can get that one for
Yeah.
free once you hit general. So we wanted to give something a little bit. Hopefully you guys can see the strategy that we're doing with recent announcements and everything we're doing with microtransaction ships, and you can understand the direction we've been going. We know that there was a lot of controversy with the Rhode Island a couple weeks ago, one of them being that people wanted it Tier 5, and we're just trying to make variants at every level for everybody, and it's just it just takes time. We'll have more Tier 5 ships. We will get them, but we want to make sure that there's something for everyone at every tier. Because right now you've got a lot of people who are Vice Admiral and are clamoring for new stuff to do, and so
New
when
toys.
and when we do something at Tier 2, I want that one now. I want it I can't use it. I understand that, but we've got new people. Hopefully a lot of new people will be coming into the game, and we want something for them too. We will be getting lots of stuff with Tier 5 guys, but so that's why we decided let's release these two ships. Another complaint was nothing for Klingons. Oh, everybody hates Klingons, and no, we love Klingons. So we said let's put a Klingon and a Fed ship out together, and let's make it the captain ship, so that way you can then put it on your Tier 5 variant as well. So you can have something for Klingons, something for Tier 5, and hopefully everybody's happy, and keep the blue phasers, and please don't yell at us anymore.
No, that's actually a great call, because I think you guys are really thinking about it from all the angles. It's trying to make everyone as pleased as possible.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Before we let you go real quick, Al, I was wondering on the subject of ships, we've got some shots in our tweet leaks of, I think, what is the lower level carrier? The Gorn ship. I was wondering.
Did he already Logan already leaked?
Yeah, we've got
Gorn
some
ship?
tweet leaks on it.
That's
It
not
looks
the-
like
that's
a
not the
Gorn
carrier.
design. I haven't.
That's not the carrier. That's a science vessel.
Okay.
That'll be
Do
a
you
true
have any
science vessel.
information that you're able to tell us about what that one's special ability will be?
Let's see. What is that one? Oh, one of them's going to be that one might be the acetone assimilators.
Oh.
Do you remember the acetone assimilators from Booby Trap?
No, not off the top of my head.
Booby Trap. Chris, come on.
It's sounding familiar, but I can't place it.
Booby Trap. They find an alien ship that
Right.
was from like 1,000,000 years ago in this minefield, and there was a reptilian-looking guy, voice from the past, and it says, we're dying, blah blah blah. It says, okay, let's mark this for the archives and let's be on our way. And all of a sudden, all their power's drained, right? And they can't move. Why can't we
Right.
drain? It says, something's draining our powers. Oh, there's something in the asteroids. Let's shoot it. You shoot it with the phasers, and all of a sudden their power drains more, and they get hit with radiation.
Right.
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 So it's the booby trap. So they can't destroy these acetone fields, and they get out with thrusters, right? So basically, we're going to make these. You can drop acetone assimilators or acetone assimilators, a little mine, and
Yes.
So it's got a PBAOE drain power, tiny little radiation burst. If you shoot it with energy, there's a burst of radiation burst to everybody in the area.
Nice.
That sounds cool.
So
you
your
have
only real defense is to get away from it.
you gotta get away from it, or I'll let you figure out how. There's other ways to get.
Okay.
But basically, you hit you with energy weapons. It's just going to hurt everybody, all your teammates nearby.
All right, cool.
And it'll drain your power. So that's that. I think that's what that one is. Gorn's like mines, right? That's what
Yeah.
we always go with. Is Gorn's drop things.
Well, there's the Gorn minefield.
The Gorn minefield.
Yeah.
The Gorn critters drop eject warp plasma, and they drop mines. And the Tier 5 one drops the healing platforms, and so we're going with that. By the way, the healing platforms getting a huge improvement.
Yes.
I don't know about people think that they don't heal really well.
They
So
don't.
Those are
And they
those
die
are-
really easily.
Yeah. So those are getting. Heretic has done a big revamp on those. They're much better now. The Noskin ship, I just released a reduced the amounts of debuff that you get on turn rate when you're in siege mode. Something people have been asking for. And we're working on a whole bunch of improvements to carriers as well, including trying to get some AI commands for your fighters. Go here, go here.
Oh,
I'll go
nice.
into formation.
Maybe just like
Oh, really?
even, like picking targets and stuff like
Picking
that.
targets, come back,
Oh, how
escort,
great.
those sort of things. So getting a little bit of that.
Now,
And
since you're talking about fixing up some of the major complaints about Klingon ships, are there any fixes coming for the Burrell retrofits cloak? It's not quite as useful as it could be.
the ship may have a little less hit points than I had intended, so I've been meaning to take a look at to make sure that it has the right amount of hit points. One of the major complaints is that if somebody heals you, it keeps your cloak keeps you from cloaking, and that's just a real hard fix, which is why it has gone on so long. And
but it's something on your radar at the very least.
It is definitely on my radar. I've got, but yeah, it's not a problem with the ship. It's a problem the way all those HOT powers are built, and I have to modify the way they're built so they don't do that.
Okay.
So yeah, so that is a problem with that. There are some new things that are coming out that will really benefit that ship, which I think people are going to really like. Just some with all these improved ships. Some of the things that are coming for it will synergize really well with that ship. I think
Great.
people will enjoy.
That's cool.
And on the isometric charge, the Vor'Kang power, just to, again, it's early. It's still
Isometric charge,
demonstrating.
that's what it's called?
That's what the power is called.
Okay.
Yeah. There's a recent change that's not on holodeck as well, so it will use deflector skills. So we'll use Starship Operations deflector and deflector dish skill. I think I reduced the damage a little bit, but it can be improved with skill. And I can't remember. It's also if your auxiliary goes offline, it'll go offline as well.
Okay.
So there's a few other minor changes, and then we're just looking for feedback to see if it's. I think we tweaked with the ranges a little bit too, because it was 10K for the initial range, and then 5K for each jump, and I think that just got a little too long, so it's going to be 10K, and then I think it goes 5K, and then 2.5K, and then 1K or something. So it gets shorter each jump, but more and more deadly. It gets harder and harder to pull off that last big blast, but then if you do, it's really gratifying.
It works against fighters too, right?
It destroys fighters.
Yeah, I would think so. It just tears them up, right?
Yeah.
I guess Klingons don't fight a lot of, in PvP, aren't fighting a lot of fighters unless you're fighting the Riemann fighters. But,
or me, because I'm just desperate and I'm firing off everything I can.
Get those scorpions out.
Yeah, exactly. Al, is there anything else you want to touch on before we wrap up?
No, I don't think so. I think we covered everything as far as the new ships. I hope everyone's enjoying them.
Yeah.
And
is the forum probably the best place for feedback?
Yeah, there's 2 official forum threads. There's one for each ship, and
I'll have the links in our show notes.
We'll put links in the show notes so people can find them there.
We'll be looking for those there. And
well, Alan, I'm sure we'll have a future rumor busting segment all about the recent free to play news once you guys are ready to talk about that. So look forward to talking to you about that.
Yeah, look for the announcements. There'll be I think they've already put on the website that they'll be putting an announcement out, just like we did with Champions, so you can see all the details there. I think everyone will be excited. We're very excited.
It may be coming out the same day this episode airs.
Yeah. So Al, I think with that we'll wrap up, and we're going to go jump into the news segment. We're going to talk about what we already do know. Yeah. But Al, thanks for coming on the show, and we'll talk to you soon.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me. I'll see you again real soon.
Thanks again to Al for coming on the show. Jeremy, let's get into the rest of the news for today's episode.
I think everybody out there watching this would be just up in arms if we didn't go straight into the free-to-play content. Just talk about it right up front here.
This is not just the big story of the week. This is the big story for the game, probably as big as anything has ever been.
This is a turning point for the game, and probably people will look back on this as this whole transition is the changing the. Yeah. It's a turning point.
Well, let's start from the very beginning. A very good place to start, Jeremy.
Yes, it is.
So this first came out actually from a very, I would say unusual source, but in terms of cryptic, this just is more go figure.
It's kind of par for the course. They keep getting the rug pulled out from under them on these things.
They're getting everything set up. They're building the website, and they got all this feature matrix they're working on, and then, of course, some CEO or somebody lets it slip in a financial statement.
Yeah, and being the mega fans that all of you guys are out there, one of the people was watching the minutes and posted it over on the STO forums.
Yeah.
And so the announcement originally came out in this just earnings report.
Yeah, we'll be transitioning Star Trek Online to a free-to-play based game later this year.
By the end of the year, yeah.
Yeah, by the end of the year.
Yeah.
Now, I think a lot of us have speculated, although I'll be honest with you, I speculated early 2012, but it's funny that...
Yeah, I was also saying it will... I was saying it will go free-to-play, but not until next year.
The timing concurred with something. Remember I sent you a link earlier in the week? I said, hey, check this out. Somebody noticed that they tried to get access to the Foundry and it said, you can't get here. This is for gold members only. And, I was like, oh, of course that's how it works. They just have this already pre-plumbed in the back end. In fact, that's what I was like, oh, yeah, hey, look, Jeremy, here's evidence. They already have it pre-plumbed for free-to-play.
Right.
And I think they came into the forums and it was like, Wishy or somebody said, hey, this is just how we're set up. Everybody that's not a trial account or a refer a friend account is a gold member.
Right.
But it is interesting that they seem to have maybe had an eye since the very beginning to plumb their account server so that they can do differentiators from there.
With the fact that their central engine shares so much with Champions Online and with other titles that they're developing, I think it stands to reason that this has always been a part of the back-end coding for Star Trek Online.
Yeah, and it also seems to be pretty much in the market approach that Perfect World takes.
Yeah.
So it obviously, not only is it supported by the upper management, but it seems to be the way they like to do business.
Well, and unless I'm wrong about this, and I could be, I don't watch the entire industry, but I think that if Star Trek Online would have stayed subscription only, it would have been Perfect World Entertainment's only subscription-based title.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So I think that kind of was in the cards, so to speak.
Well, and it also isn't surprising, and I think since we don't have all of the information, as this episode's coming out or later in the week, hopefully Cryptic will have like a feature makes it online and a frequently asked questions page.
Yeah, it's supposed to come on Tuesday.
Yeah. Sometimes you got to leave space dock before you have it installed.
That's
Jeremy.
right.
And so we'll dig through all of that and have more information in next week's episode. But I think we're probably we can learn a lot from Cryptic's past and look what they did with Champions, which I think, would you agree, seems to be a success?
Oh yeah. Yeah, they've already said that their revenues have increed dramatically.
And you can tell just by going on, there's a lot more players now.
Their community is more active. There's more people online on a regular basis. It's you guys probably know I play Champions sometimes. I call it my holodeck. But yeah, it's fun to play because there's people there.
Yeah.
For a while, that was not the case.
Yeah. And one of the things that I guess one of the big hubbubs in the community for STO is our lifetimers and monthlies getting a little gypped here. Hey, I've invested this $250 or whatever it is, and now you're going free to play in a few months. What's up?
Yeah.
And I don't have anything to really say yet because we don't know the details. But if we refer to the Champions model, at the end of the day, I found enough value in the Champions model that after Champions went free to play, I bought the lifetime. Because to me, there was clear value for the lifetime sub. And so if
it's in the form of a monthly stipend, right?
Yeah.
So you get, not only are you getting access to all of the features that are gated off to free players.
More costume slots, more travel powers.
And the ability to mix and match your powers and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But you additionally get this free little bonus of having more stuff to buy, so you can buy XP boosts and things like that on the C-Store.
Yeah. And so if some of that model is replicated for STO's free-to-play model, I think all of us out there now that are taking money out of pocket to play will see some sort of benefit.
Well, I think what it comes down to, let's take a slight step backwards, because as I've been saying, if you guys watch my other show, The Morgue, you might have heard me say this before, that the free-to-play moniker is a mistitle. Because the game is not really completely free.
Right.
It just has the subscription is now an optional component of gameplay.
Yeah, it's like not a long-term trial, but it's like a never-ending trial.
It's a never-ending trial.
Yeah.
And for anybody that plays these games for free, there will be things that you won't have access to. In Champions Online, it's certain power sets or things like that. Like you can't mix and match your powers. You're restricted to archetypes if you're playing for free.
Right.
You can
and a
unlock
limited
more
set of archetypes, I believe, too.
You can buy more archetypes on the C-Store. Anyway, in any free-to-play game, that's always the case, is that if you're playing the game for free, certain content or certain mechanics will be gated off. In Star Trek Online, it could be that as a subscriber, you get access to level up any way you want, be that PvE, PvP, exploration, diplomatic, the DOF system. That could all be open to anybody that subscribes, but who knows which of those mechanics may be locked off for free-to-play. We already know that they won't be able to create missions in the Foundry.
Well, we've seen that, haven't we? We've seen gold members can't create. Now, wouldn't that be interesting as a freemium user? You don't get to make any Foundry missions, but you get to play them or something.
Sure.
The Foundry is definitely a unique competitive angle of STO. It's something completely different than anything Champions has, and it's something different than most MMOs have.
There's only one other free-to-play MMO that offers anything similar. That's City of Heroes Architect.
Oh, yeah. Sure.
And I haven't played with it myself, but I hear that it's more of like a fill-in-the-blanks thing rather than the Foundry, which lets you create it from scratch, build your own environments and things like that.
Now, we both have some thoughts on what this could mean impact-wise long-term for the game. Why don't you share a couple of what...
I think that this cannot be considered a bad thing in any way whatsoever, because you're going to have basically, if they set up the subscription model correctly, which I have really no personal doubt that they will. They already have a successful subscription model in Champions, and Perfect World are veterans of doing free-to-play well. So I don't really have any doubts on this.
Okay.
So if they do that right, then they succeed in making a system which doesn't alienate their existing player base and also completely eliminates the barrier for entry for new players to try out the game.
And that this is one of my points, but just to play from that just for a second is I think when you and I, before the game launched, we met a lot of Star Trek fans that weren't sure about this game.
Yeah.
And they're like, God, these people frickin' love Star Trek.
Yeah.
To a very much degree. And, okay, I'll stop there, but just trust me. And they just still were uneasy about paying for a video game. First of all, they're not gamers, and the idea of paying monthly is toxic to them.
Yeah, it is.
And so this sort of just completely drops this wall for them. As Star Trek fans, they can get in and start experiencing original Star Trek content that is canon.
Yeah. Or at least semi-canon.
Yeah.
At least canon is most of the novels that they love to read.
Yeah.
At least.
Hey, as much as CBS sort of has an eye on things, I'm considering more and more what they do in STO to be canon.
Yeah.
I didn't mean to step on your thoughts there, but I agree with you on that point.
Another general thought that a lot of people, maybe not a lot, but there's quite a vocal contingent of MMO players or gamers out there that think that when a game goes free to play, that signals failure. That they're only doing it because their game isn't worth buying, isn't worth paying for.
I don't want to step on your point, but that seems like such an obvious misconception walking away from PAX.
Yeah.
I mean, everything that was new and exciting and innovative that wasn't big industry and that was really something that was unique was free to play.
Firefall
free to
Guild Wars
play.
2 is not going to have...
Path of Exile free to play. I mean, just Eternity Warriors free to play. Like, I kept coming across games free to play at PAX
with huge multiplayer online presences.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's absolutely true. I think that thinking that free to play is a failure is completely... let me turn it on its head. If you've got a game like World of Warcraft out there, personally for me, World of Warcraft is not worth $15 a month. Neither is, there's a whole slew of Rift. There's a whole slew of games out there that I personally would not pay $15 a month for, but if they were free... And
DCU is a perfect example for me. I tried it. It just didn't justify enough for me to pay for. But if it was free, I'd hop in.
Now, here's another example. I play Dungeons & Dragons online because it's free. But you know what? I take 4 months gaps at a time, and when I decide to load into DDO, I go on there, and I notice there's a new adventure pack. They just got $5 from me.
See, okay.
$5 that they would not have gotten because I would not have paid for a subscription or even had the client installed.
Let's hit the pause button there, because that's one of, I think, my biggest points about STO going free to play is we just got done covering how upset people were about the content drought. And if you're monthly, it burns extra hard because you're paying for that. Well, this lets monthly people hit the pause button from payments. Hey, there's a content drought. There's a money drought now. Free to play lets you keep poking away at the same character. You're not completely uninvested from the world. You keep progressing. You keep an eye on things.
Yeah.
And if
you can still log in and talk to your fleet mates and friends and things like that.
Totally, right?
Yeah.
Do the social stuff and still do progression. But if this new content hits and if for whatever reason it's walled off, then you just re-up for the months that you enjoy that content. And when you're done, you stop playing exactly like you do for Dungeons and Dragons.
Yep.
And I think that opens the game up to it just dissolves this wall that's there now.
Several episodes back, we kind of got some heat for saying the term "vote with your wallets" in terms of taking subscription breaks. But this is exactly what this free-to-play model allows you to do.
Yeah.
And widespread adoption in the MMO industry of a free-to-play model allows every gamer everywhere to tell MMO developers exactly what you like by buying it. I mean, if you don't buy it, then those games are going to stop being made.
Right.
If the game is worth your investment, you know what? And there's also the other angle is that if you offer people the ability to pay more money for a game that they enjoy, and they pay for it, then you've done a great thing. I actually went to a panel at last year's PAX about Farmville on this subject. This is basically, there are people out there that pay hundreds of dollars a month to play Farmville. I won't comment on the insanity of that, but the truth of the matter is that Zynga did a very smart thing by allowing those people to give them more money.
Now they're rich.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, and now you have the
could
same
use that.
Same
but you don't want them to milk either. But the nice thing is...
No, but they don't have to milk because there's huge Star Trek fans out there like you.
Well, and only the stuff that people want will sell.
Yeah.
So it's sort of as a self-policing system, theoretically. And
even if you came to Star Trek, let's say you had not heard of it until this point, and now you hear it's going free to play, so now you want to start playing. Well, if you, Chris, start playing as a free-to-play member, there's no doubt in my mind that in the first month you'll have spent $100 on new ships and
Yeah, we're
costumes.
going to up it. Yeah, or
you're such a
I'll
Star
do what
Trek
I did
fan.
in Champions and just go, I'm going Lifetime.
Right.
And it's exactly that. So that lower barrier gets tons of people in there that are biting at that low-hanging fruit that then sort of go from there.
Now, there are a few concerns with the free-to-play system, though. I mean,
What about gold farming? That's one the chat room keeps bringing up.
yeah, that's going to happen a little bit, but there's already a prevention measure in place, and that is that through the use of this new dilithium currency and the trading of that for C-store points with other players,
we're starting to see some of the background.
You choke the gold farmers because there's very little reason for a player to invest money in buying C-store points or whatever these gold farmers are trying to sell you when they can get it through legitimate means from a fellow player.
You know, in terms of the way the community reacts to stuff that rolls out for the game, there is always in the STO community a potential for like that powder cake scenario that just blows up.
Yeah.
Cryptic, though, I don't know. I think Champions is one of the best free-to-play models out there. I honestly am not a very, well-versed person in all of the different free-to-play models, but as a consumer of the Champions free-to-play model, I find it to be very fair, and I would love to see that same model applied to other games.
I can actually tell you from personal experience, I played Champions, I played DDO, I played Lotro, and I've started to check out the new Age of Conan free-to-play. Out of all of them, Champions seems like the best game. I think the subscription model is
Wouldn't it be great
big part of that.
Wouldn't it be great if the free-to-play model that Cryptic chooses for STO and Perfect World chooses, wouldn't it be great if that becomes the golden standard as far as consumers, as this is the free-to-play model used? And I think the people at Cryptic are smart enough to do it.
Yeah.
So what we could end up seeing is our game and making a big impact on a market that is just exploding. Free to play is the future.
It really is.
Is coming out of packs. It's just
and a lot of people are referencing things like Tor and stuff and other subscription-based games that may be coming out in the near future. I really don't see that as being a long-term viable strategy.
Well, it might work for some big franchises like
some, but
initially.
I still think that they're going to be start becoming the minority.
Well, and who says
as more and more players start to adapt the concept of being able to play a game for free and then decide whether or not you want to pay for it, and those guys will be left in the dust.
The iPad and appification world sort of encourages this lower and lower prices thing.
Yeah.
You maybe in Tor's 2-year mark they'll go free to play. They might go so sub only to make the most money up front and then switch to a free system later on.
Yep.
So totally possible, but obviously, all the details aren't in yet, but as we get them, we'll try to get them clarified.
They might be coming out this day.
And if possible, we'll try to get some official Cryptic people on to talk about it too, so we get it straight from them.
I do want to mention one more possible concern, and this is one that actually is your guys' responsibility. You people watching this are the community of the game. Going free to play means that there's going to be churn. There's going to be turnover of new people coming into the game and deciding on their own at that point whether or not they want to stick around or give it up. Because there's plenty of other free to play games out there. They could go play DDO or Lotro or Age of Conan or whatever they want. One of the problems that comes with free to play potentially is that community churn creates this no sense of community. It ruins the sense of community because there's no
in Champs they sort of like lock down that so only subs get to certain areas of the forum.
That's true. But then that can potentially lead to elitism because then you've got the open public area is only freepers and the rest, everybody that pays, subscribes, only posts in the others.
That'll be something to watch. Do you have any sense of how that's impacted Champions?
Not on the community side, not really. I don't invest much in the
Maybe if
community
anybody is a big player on Champions has any thoughts on that, leave us a comment on that. The other thing we want to hear from you is we have a poll in the show notes. Go vote. Is this good or bad? It's only 2 options. We want your gut reaction. So far, we've asked the live chat room. We've got 320 people watching, and I don't know how many people in the chat room, Jeremy. It looks like about another 300 people in the chat room. And they say 84% say it's a good thing. At the time of this recording, 16% are saying it's a bad thing. But we want to hear the viewer who downloads our streams as well, so go vote in the show notes, and we'll cover those next week.
And if you have specific comments that you like, a reason why you think it's good or bad, go ahead and leave your comments below. We'll
leave them there on the show notes page. Also in there is a link to the Champions free-to-play model if you're just curious how their feature matrix works. It might prep you for the one that comes out for STO.
Absolutely.
Who knows? All right, J-Man, now we've got a bunch of other stuff to talk about. One thing, though, before we transition into some of the leaks and the Borg invasion stuff, Dan Stahl stopped by and did an interview with
Computer Ed.
Computer Ed.
Yeah, it's another podcast out there. Not Star Trek related, but this guy seems like a really big fan of STO.
Yeah.
So he asked some good questions, and Stahl had some great answers. I wanted to share share some of those with you. This actually was recorded on the morning that the leak came out. So he was able to get just a little smidge of information from Dan, not so much about the details of what their free-to-play will be, but just general commentary on the industry. And
what do we get? What do we get?
Well, one of the things that Dan brought up was actually talking about the widespread adoption on Steam, one of the biggest online distribution networks in the world for gaming. Yeah. And the fact that they have started to very heavily adopt the free-to-play model. They have a whole section on Steam. Not only that, but they regularly feature these free-to-play titles. I actually just downloaded and started playing Puzzle Pirates because of Steam, which is a free-to-play MMO. Where you're a little pirate on a ship. It's kind of cutesy, but it's a nice little time waster. But anyway, the fact that Steam and Valve, one of the biggest game companies out there with the largest digital distribution network on the planet, is pushing free-to-play MMOs. It indicates that this is a way of the future. This is something
there obviously must be money in it.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely, because Valve likes money. Yeah, well, otherwise they wouldn't sell so many damn hats in Team Fortress.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. So the link to the full interview in the show notes. Any other thoughts from that interview?
Well, he's saying that content creation speed will actually speed up under Perfect World with this new model. I'm not sure exactly what his logic is for that, but he did say it multiple times. He didn't really back it up with a solid reason for it.
Well, except for he said that Perfect World is a big believer in content. And they say the Perfect World understands that that's how you drive these games. Well, so maybe he's implying that they also understand with dollars and
under the Perfect World general free-to-play model, their microtransaction stores are cosmetics. They're like costumes and new effects and things like that, and they're not missions.
That's designed not to break the game in any kind of major way.
They're also big proponents of the fact that you can advance from 0 to the max, all the way up without having to buy anything on the store.
This is that's kind of like the general rules across their games.
Yeah, for all of Perfect World's games.
Good.
And therefore they agree that in order to entice people to buy things on their store, you have to give them things to do. It's just like we were saying earlier, where like with ground combat, we've got a new set of toys, but no playground. So Perfect World very much feels that you have to set up the playground before you give people toys to try out on it. So that could help drive the creation of new content at a more steady clip.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we'll keep an eye on it. Obviously, it's going to be a big topic for a few weeks. Ready to talk about a little new content?
Yes.
All right, so the game has gotten the new Borg invasions. They were just delayed just a little bit, but to work out a few bugs, and now they've hit. And
these are the Red Alert deep space encounters.
Yeah. Let's talk about what your thoughts on them, because I'm curious.
I'm a little bit of a cranky pants over these because I think that they were a little bit of a letdown, just personally.
I know the chat room.
You have enjoyed these.
No, you got one guy there saying they're boring.
Well, but the person right above him says hooray. Yeah. So, I mean, the opinions on this is very much split. Yeah. I find it a little frustrating that in order to track these down, you have to use a player-created content system.
The Red Chat channel.
The Red Alert chat channel. So you have to... There's no way in-game to find out where a Red Alert is going on, which is actually on the opposite side. It's really cool that the communities come together to create a way that you can track these down.
Yes.
So I'm really split over that. But
I think it depends on if, of course... Everybody's going to go accolade hunting, so they did this, but it's really just supposed to be a random encounter when you're farting around.
It is, but I think that it was a little short-sighted on Cryptic's account to think that people wouldn't want to farm these, that they wouldn't want to track these down, that they would just accept them as random happenstance that would come up.
Short-sighted, or they just figured the community would make it work? They have shown that they've shown where they've made decisions in the past with the specific intention of the community filling in the gaps.
You're not wrong.
So I will say I like them. Because, well, first of all, I guess I should make a disclaimer. I'm not a hater of DSEs to begin with.
I am, so I think that's a little bias coming into it.
I kind of like DSEs, but these are not just deep space encounters. They, bring the biggest story change to the Klingon arc that we've had since the game's launched. I think the temporary ceasefire and being in there with other Clinks and also we get the new artwork. This is the really introduction to a lot of the new Borg cubes.
Yeah, the reskinning of all that. Yeah,
and we got this epic boss ship, which seems to be a tie into V'ger. It's got the V'ger bong.
I think that's all but come out and said it. They could have called it V'ger Jr., and that would have just nailed the point home. But
now, just a quick Star Trek history lesson. V'ger is the main bad guy from Star Trek: The Motion Picture.
if you didn't know that, go away.
Yeah, which was somehow, it was one of our own satellites that got, or space probes that got converted into this massive machine.
Spoilers.
And it's been sort of implied throughout different books or different things, and CBS has sort of signed off on these different implications that it was perhaps repaired and refactored by the Borg.
Yeah.
And so now...
Well, I think that the primary storyline comes from Shatner's novels, isn't it? From the Reunion,
Yeah,
or Rebirth, or what was it called?
I can't remember. I've
Re-something.
read it, though. I've read it.
Where that V'ger probe went off and found a race of machines.
Yeah.
And through the introduction of the Decker biological matter into the V'ger matrix, this race of machines basically said, that's a good idea. And then they kind of went out
Way to go,
and
Decker.
started taking over the universe as a result of it.
So we'll have a link to more about V'ger in the show notes. But the connection is not one that's loved by the J-Man, I would say.
Nope.
You don't like that story.
I really don't. I can't really pinpoint exactly why, except for the fact that V'ger and the Decker's sacrifice at the end of Star Trek: The Motion Picture, it potentially painted V'ger as a new heroic effort, a new form of life that could be a good thing in the universe.
It did.
And bastardizing that, into a bad guy, into the big bad
take
guy
on
of
it.
the universe.
Interesting take on it.
It lessens
Is it also not poetically sort of profound?
that you add humanity to this massive
and we
machine
end up
and
creating
you
our
end
own massive bad guy?
Yeah, in a way, but
I think here's my take. I'm not big on the V'ger Borg connection either. I agree with you, J-Man, but here is where I differ. I branch on that and I say, I think that's done. I think that ship has sailed. I think CBS has decided. And if we're gonna have something happen in that space, I'm glad it's in the hands of Cryptic and in STO.
yes,
Because if something like that's going to happen, this is where I want it to happen at. And so I like that the seeds have been laid there, and I hope that gets some watering, maybe even a little bit of poop on top so we get something to sprout.
Yep.
I would like to see that go a little further.
and I got to say, just as, one more thing for the V'ger side of things, is it's a very good thing when your executive producer is happy. And Dan Stahl has had a nerd boner over V'ger for a long time.
That's right, yeah.
So I'm sure that he's very happy to have had this added to the game.
I got some tips if you're going to play at lower levels, like down in the lower Lieutenant Commander ranges.
Yeah, because you can play this at any level above Lieutenant Commander 6, I think it is.
And if you're at the higher levels, go get your diplomatic transwarps if you can, or if you have the Excelsior, it's really great if you join that Red Alert chat channel and people say, and you have transwarp drive, although one time it bailed on me, but between the transwarp drive or the Borg engine where you go a little faster and quantum slipstream, you're able to scoot around and get to them pretty good.
Yeah, so high level guys have a very big advantage on doing this.
If you're low level, there's a few things you can do to make these fun and not a frustrating experience, because they are a little more challenging than the regular DSEs. Focus on keeping your distance from especially at the main bad guy.
Yeah.
I don't know if his weapons are more powerful at close range or what, but they'll drop your shield.
Well, you'll have less time to avoid his big plasma ball.
That too. So focus on your strengths, like the probes or the plasma balls or things like that, the spheres that you
yes,
can work
absolutely
on.
Keep your distance, because in order to spawn the big bad guy, you have to take out cubes, and everybody knows that their warp cores go up in a boom.
Yeah.
And if you're a low-level player, you might not even have evasive maneuvers at your fingertips.
So stay far and watch your aggro, basically.
Yeah.
And if you do those things, you have to play a little bit further back. But I play it as a lieutenant commander, and it's totally doable.
It's nice to have the option to be able to go in at that level,
and not playing at the top when you have her when you're in the XP boost zone. There's like this little animated flicker effect across the XP bar, and you're getting boosted.
Yeah.
And then you can pop the C-Store booster, and then you're really jamming that thing.
Then that little 10-minute encounter is worth hours of gameplay.
That's like doing coke and speed at the same time and going for a jog, J-Man, with skates on. That's what you're doing there. So you guys got to check that out. Any other thoughts on the Borg invasions?
Not really. I just want to restate that it's a little annoying to have to track them down, but once you have, you don't have to actually fly and find them. Once you're in the right sector,
just have to be in the zone.
You just hit the red alert button at the bottom, and you get sent into it.
You also have to watch for what instance it's in.
Yes,
so that's the other thing to watch.
Because there are so many people playing right now. There are multiple versions of, specifically like Pycanis and Sirius. There's multiple versions of several sector blocks out there.
But let us know in the comments what you thought of the Borg invasion. Of course, the ground ones are coming up. So I have a feeling we'll probably do extended Borg invasion coverage as it goes. One last thing. The other reason I like it is, and this is a corny sort of reason, but my character was working at the Daystrom Institute and then joined Federation when the Borg attacked for like during the academy, during the tutorial phase. That event compelled my character to rejoin Starfleet because he believed the Borg were working towards a larger invasion. So this whole Borg invasion thing kind of gets
So
to
it proved him right.
Yeah, it plays into my. So I was like, as like doing all that kind of role playing thing, I was like, oh, this is awesome. This is totally what my character said was going to happen. He called it. So that's been fun. So
And that's why he flies an Excelsior, so he can transwarp and be on the front line of every single battle.
All right, J-Man, let's move into some...
It'd be really funny if I didn't do anything for it this week while you make a fool of yourself.
Yeah, but okay, that's fine. But that's just so fancy. There's like something you can do with that, I would think.
Sure there is.
Hey, I learned recently how to auto-tune. I'm just saying.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about tweet leaks because...
well, actually, some of these were mentioned during our little rumor busting with Al. We've got
They
some
were
shots
indeed.
of a new low-level Gorn ship.
This is cool. Obviously, not to go back to the free-to-play topic, but looking back over where Cryptic has done the episode remasters and how a lot of this stuff is available, like the featured episodes are available to lower-level characters, and how they're adding content for lower-level characters, it's obvious that they're going to make the lower-level experience a good one for those free-to-players coming in.
And they should.
And which will compel them then to have to make the higher-end and middle stuff also better to match up that content.
Do a callback to our interview with Al. You remember, like, a lot of the new stuff that they're adding, they're trying to figure out a way to make it still workable at Tier 5. Like the new
Like the skin.
Galaxy variant is available for captains, but you can also use it all the way up to VAs. So
Yeah.
there's an added bonus there for any level range.
That's cool. What else we got in the tweet leaks,
The
J-Man?
rest of the tweet leaks is all from Gozer. And it's actually, some of these were forum posts, but I'm including them here because this is where we've been covering all the big STF
specifically
changes.
enjoyed these. So you and I were hanging out with the fleet last night on TeamSpeak, and they were playing these new STF changes. Gozer must have been pulling a late night because as they were playing, he was posting these.
Yeah, some of these came out as late as like 11 o'clock last night.
Yeah, and it was funny because as they were playing, one of them we'll talk about in here is like he was online or something. They messaged him, "Hey, Goz, we noticed this," and he said, "Yep, the pylon, they regenerate now. The Borg gateways, they regenerate
in Kinderman Accord."
And Gozer says, "Yep, that's how they're supposed to work now. But hey, at least they're not shooting at you. Ha ha."
And then he shows us a picture of them shooting at us.
Yeah, you tweet leak. So a tweet leak of the gateways now shooting. So obviously those missions are getting amped up. And remember, also now you can just play those by themselves. The space portion, you don't have to play the whole thing anymore.
Well, to nail that point home, the thing that's being done is that there are no longer going to be missions associated with these. So you no longer have to hail somebody and say, "Can I do the Kinderman Accord now?" Which also means no time limits anymore.
Yeah.
So these are now going to be basically adventure zones.
Like you just approach
just approach and zone in, and you are in the special task
I like
force.
that.
You no longer have to deal with
So you could
with
solo
any mission wrappers or anything.
You could solo it?
I
mean,
don't recommend it.
You could attempt to solo it, I guess is what I'm saying? Yeah, okay, all right. It might be fun just if you want a few shots of you blowing up for the show at some point. Maybe that's how we can do it. Anything else Anything else in the tweet leaks?
No, there's tons of links in there though. If you want to hear about all the new changes coming to the special
and
task
maybe
forces.
like the timelines for those changes.
Yep,
links in the show notes there. All right, J-Man, we talked about the new ships with Al.
Yes,
so
we
I
did.
think we could skip over that point, but we have some more details in the show notes for that.
I think before we leave, I just want to mention this really quickly because you actually covered this a bit on Jupiter at Night the other night, and I think that our fans of Stoked want to hear about it. There's a new Star Trek show being pitched.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't actually get to tune into Jupiter at Night because I went to bed early with all the
I
NyQuil
talked about
in
it
my
more in
system.
Jupiter Night, but I'll give you the highlights.
Yeah.
It would take place post-Voyager, so in the prime Star Trek universe, the
Okay.
one that STO lives. Which wouldn't that
So
be
not
interesting?
JJ.
Not JJ's universe, but
Okay.
the one that the Star Trek Online exists in, so that could be some interesting tie-ins for the game. It sounds like, the Ferengi have advanced a lot more. There's changes that sort of the Federation maybe isn't as beloved as it used to be, and there's maybe a little more rogue aspect to it. Anyways, I talk about it more in Jupiter Night.
Yeah, so go check that out. It's over at jupiterbroadcasting.com. Look for Jupiter at Night 210.
Episode 210. Yep, that's what it was. So, all right, J-Man, well, that wraps up this week's episode of Stoked. Now, we've got a big one already planned for next week, and we're also working towards episode 100, which we have some major epic plans that I think we'll announce in next week's episode.
Yeah, sure. But
All right.
next week's episode is also going to include the community feedback about how do you keep your fleet strong, as well as a Foundry Files.
We were actually going to toss it in this week's episode, but we just decided let's put Foundry Files and community feedback next week so we can focus on free-to-play and the new ships in this week. And then next week, you guys will get all that. So if you are a fleet out there. We want to know what you guys do to keep your fleet strong during content droughts, and you still have time to let us know.
We could potentially have at least one more person call us in on Skype for a live little quick segment as well. If you have something unique that your fleet does to keep together.
Yeah, let us know. Contact us, STOked@jupiterbroadcasting.com. And you can always find us on Google Plus or Twitter. I'm Chris LAS on Twitter.
And I am JB Jeremy on Twitter.
And you can, actually, if you go to jupiterbroadcasting.com, there's a link that says Chris's blog, and I just redirect that now to my Google Plus.
Oh.
I just figured I'm done with the blog for a while.
Yeah.
All right, everyone. Well, thanks so much for tuning in to this week's episode of Stoked, and we'll see you right back here next Tuesday. All right, pop your collar, J-Man. Let's do this thing. Pop your collar. It's time for Stoked 96, the pop collar edition. We're kind of low down now, see? It's like we're both, you know what it is? It's like we're both sitting together in the captain's chair. Only on our bridge, it's a captain's couch. We got a captain's love seat.
Let's call it couch.
Okay. Stoked News 2 to go after Al. This is going to bump this right. Jeremy? Hey, Jeremy! Jeremy!
Future Jeremy.
Put it after the rumor busting, not before, otherwise we would look like spazzes. All right.
We do look like spazzes.
Okay. Because I do want to give that a mention since we worked our effing asses off for it.
Well, yes.